Okay, so let's save that. I'm going to save that in the project folder, and I'm going to save up actually. I'm going to call it master scene 02, and we're going to do some rocks with particle flow. I don't want a particle flow system in the file that I'm going to be rendering. I'm going to collapse it first. I'm going to actually do that in this displacement scene 02. So we'll open that up. And we'll just hide that villa. And create a particle flow system. So before I do that, I'm just going to save this scene now as the particle rocks 01. So on the Create tab panel, go to Particle Systems and create a PF source. I'm just going to pop that there. And the other thing we're going to need is a couple of rocks. So that's a bit big. Let's make that a little smaller. Something like that. And we'll give that a proper name. And I actually want to shift move to copy that. And I'm going to make this one just a bit wider, just so I've got two different basic shapes there. Choose them both, and just group them, and then go into the particle view. So let's just arrange this so we've got a bit of space. Now we don't need all of these things in here. We don't need the birth, the position, the speed or the shape, so we'll control choose all those and delete them. Instead we'll put a birth texture in there. We're going to use a shape instance. That's all we need in there. So birth texture, we'll change the emit stop to 0. We'll right click on this spinner here and that'll just 0 it for us. And then when we click initialize parameters, it'll create a new helper object in our scene, which is this birth texture here. So just move that off to the side where we can see it, and we'll go into that in a second. Just going down this list here, we've got the shape instance, and that means we're instead of some of the built-in particle shapes objects in particle flow, we're going to instance one for our max scene. So we'll click none and we'll choose the group with the two rocks in it, and we'd like to have separate particles for the group members. We need to turn off this scale here because we're going to be doing that in the birth texture operator. We'll click multi-shape random order just so that these two come up in they're picked randomly. Looking at rotation, we've got random 3D rotation, that's fine, we're going to keep that. And then looking at display, we don't want to see ticks, we want to see the actual geometry, so we'll change that there. And that's all we're going to do in particle view, so we can close that. And we're going to use a texture spread over this, spread over our landscape, and that's going to control where these rocks, these particle rocks, are going to appear. So we need to apply that. So we'll go into our material editor, and we'll create a new standard material. It doesn't really matter what kind of material you use here. And in the diffuse slot, I'm going to choose a bitmap, and in the project folder you'll find a JPEG called Distribute Rocks 01 JPEG, and we're just going to have a quick look at that. Now I painted this already because it was half an hour, 20 minutes in Photoshop, which is not really what I wanted to cover, but basically it was the same map that we were using to mix the grass. Let's find that one. I'll just show you which map I'm talking about. Sandy grass mix map. Let's just look at that to remind ourselves. So what I did, I zoomed in on an area. I think it was about here in Photoshop. So I just blew that up. Cropped it, and then I painted black where I don't want these rocks to appear. So I don't want any in the middle of the road, or on the driveway, or any where the house is sitting. And I painted some out, so there's some beach down here, so it's not just a completely rocky beach, and here where the steps are joining. And then I also painted on top of that a little bit of extra white here. I think if you remember earlier I said the texture was stretching a bit on here, but I wasn't on the displaced terrain object. It was not too worried because I was going to place rocks there. So that's what I've done. I've just painted white around this corner, and I want that to be covered with rocks there. So I haven't gone through painting that in Photoshop, but I hope you can see it's nothing too complicated and fairly self-explanatory there. So we'll pick that JPEG, and I want to see that in the viewport. If I apply it to the displaced mesh object, and there we go, and you see it's tiling it every meter. So we can change this to 90. And I think you can see, maybe that makes more sense when you see it stretched over the actual geometry, doesn't it? You can see I've painted black where the driveway is and the road. Okay, so we're going to, most of the fun stuff on this is in this birth texture here. We'll just go down through here and change a few of these settings here. Firstly, we don't want a total amount of particles or rocks on this object here. We want to separate them by a certain distance, and somewhere between 1 meter and 1.5 meters. If I don't like the look of this, I'm going to come back and change it. We're also going to tick fast approximate separation. It will take ages if you don't tick this, and for this operation I personally can't see any difference at all. So I'm going to tick that. You could tick this adjust by scale factor. Again, it would take a lot longer to work out the solution, so I'm not going to bother with that. It doesn't add anything for me, so I'm not going to change that. Just change this timing. I want all of this creation to start on frame 0, all of this particle system happening on frame 0. And then we're going to choose emission by material, and that basically means that where it's white it's going to put a particle system, where it's black it's not, and with the grey areas somewhere in between. Now that's controlled by this spinner here, whiteness. So when it's set at 99% as it is now, that means that basically something that's very nearly, if it was 100%, any object or any part of this map that is white will get a particle system, and otherwise nothing will be created. So we need to lower this. I'm going to lower it to about 30% or something like that. So that means that where it's black on this object here, there will be no rocks created. And again, I'm going to just leave that as it is there. If I don't like it, we can come back and adjust that quite quickly. In fact, that's this whiteness percentage and this separation, this number here. They're probably worth playing around with and seeing different looks you can do. If they're the two percentages that we'll change in this system to alter the look of it. Right, so the emitter object, of course, we want to add this displace mesh 01 to there. We don't need any surface offset. I'm quite happy for these to be positioned exactly on here. But I do want to, this is the reason why, main reason why I'm using this birth texture operator. It has this great feature here, scale factor. So I'm going to scale the size of these rocks by the grayscale value of the material. Now I'm not sure why it's submaterial and not material, but that's what it's going to be using. I think the only other thing we need to do here is alter the scales here, and it's set at 10% and 100%. Let's leave those for now, see what they do. I don't really want really small rocks and rocks that are 10 times bigger, or 100 times bigger. So between 10 and 100, I think that's going to be fine. Let's see what that does. I think I've remembered everything. Soon find out. So we'll initialize the particle emission, and you'll see that there was it did it very quickly. There's no time to see it, but the time bar at the bottom, and I think that's pretty much the settings there. I'm happy with those. So it's you can see they're all being spread where it's all doing exactly what you'd expect it to do. I hope I've explained it right, and none of that surprising. It should have done what you were expecting it to do too. So there were just a few things that we could look at, percentages changing here. We'll just show you. If I increase the separation, they'll be more spread out. And we're actually looking at the purple boxes there. And I hope you can see there's two shapes. There's the cube, and then the other one, which the box that was had a longer side as well, just for a bit of variation. The other thing we had here that I said would make a big difference is this percentage here. So if we just increase this, again, you should see far fewer created. And that's the easy way of adjusting them. If you make the percentages smaller, it takes longer to do all of those operations. But yeah, so I was happy with how they looked. I was just showing you what changing those can do. So something like that, I think that's going to be great.